Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we essentially did manage able to win through quite a few missions that we somehow completed for some of those cyberspace segments from time to time, and I think, exponentially speaking though, is that I believe we actually are onto the halfway point in terms of completing some of those mission objectives for, completing the cyberspace stages pretty much. So as a result, despite there are some quite a few trial and errors from time to time, specifically with the forms of level 4-E, just because of this instant kill bomb that is ticking off. But regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that we did those specific missions quite decently, especially concerning for the fact that unlike level 4-C, that I believe that is by far, I'm not gonna lie, it's not only one of the easiest, but it's also the most funnest one out of them all. Mainly because, thank God, you don't need to rely on the forms of trying to able to deliver those fleekies during the forms of those specific, or actually gonna think about it, is to be more specifically, delivering certain animals for certain spots. But either way though, that might be some conception. So because of that, yeah, today for this video is about the fact that we are still continuing playing through several of Cyberspace stages again, except the noticeable differences being is that hopefully we should be able to actually not only achieve the S ranks, which hopefully that should be the case for this point, but also about the fact that we are still completing certain mission objectives in some of those cyberspace stages that we've already experienced with. So because of that, so as you can tell, we are now going back onto 4-G with this particular thermometer system, or the gauge system as far as I'm concerned. So even then though, because technically speaking though, we've already did somehow managed able to complete 3 of those mission objectives already, but this time around though, I'm actually going to be focusing on not only delivering all the animals into safe spots, but also about the fact that at some point afterwards though, I can pretty sure I'm also able to try my best able to actually aim for this S rank. So because of that, yeah, not much else explanations for the sake of time. So anyways though, so yeah, a few things I want to explain for this point today is, potentially speaking though, is that today's date of course is the 5th of December today, in some cases in 2023 today. And for those of you who lived in the UK anyway, happy 15th anniversary of the UK's release of Madagascar Escape to Africa, or should I call it Madagascar 2 anyway, just because that was the second film in the series when it comes to the Madagascar trilogy of films, assuming if Madagascar 4 is about to be in the development, but I highly doubt it. So because of that though, I mean, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that while still looking back on it though, I still managed able to enjoy my time with the films of Madagascar Escape to Africa. So even then though, I'm sure that some toy sales has already explained about this already. So because of that, and also not to mention though, for those of you also who lived in the UK version as well, happy 9th anniversary of the actual game compilation's release of Kingdom Hearts HD 2.5 Remix for the PlayStation 3. Which as a result, it might be pretty difficult to come back into the PS3 version every now and then, mainly because a lot of people seem to get a lot accustomed to the forms of the PlayStation 4 version, or the PC version, or the Xbox One versions nowadays, mainly because of faster loading times, and on top of that, 60 FPS. So because of that, usually while looking back on the PS3 version even to this day, that it is pretty much great for the most part, except with bad loading times, alongside with the forms of some very bad sound mixing, and on top of that, just any questionable design choices of how the fact that, concerning for the fact that they almost budget everything for the likes of the forms of Kingdom Hearts 2, my favorite game in the series, or to be more specifically, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, which, thankfully though, on the PS4 release, and especially noticeable with the later releases to come, that basically they did somehow manage to address the actual issues, like For instance, during the Forms event 2017, that obviously the PS4 version exists, and my goodness, that was by far the best version of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix by far, especially with faster loading times. And not only that, some of these physics have been tweaked, despite the fact that when it first came out in Japan, there's a lot of questionable issues here and there, and especially noticeable with a lot of game crashing every once in a while, especially when if you're trying to able to save your game. Jeez, I feel incredibly bad for some players out there back then. But thankfully though, during the course of maybe presumably in 2021, that basically we've actually got the Xbox One version for the likes of the forms of... Actually, gonna think about it, it was technically both Xbox One and Xbox Series X/S. They've somehow managed able to experience all those Kingdom Hearts games digitally on the Xbox systems. Although, it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, on the Switch version, it's really rough. Mainly because of the stupid cloud system. So because of that, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer though, which you probably ought to expect at that point. So, oh yeah, speaking of Kingdom Hearts 2 actually, is that, potentially speaking of, for those of you who don't know, it's been about a couple of days ago since when, well, Stuart, a friend of ours, specifically that he was a part of the forms of Cap King 74, well, truth be told, he's finally back in the forms of uploading YouTube stuff again. To be more specifically, he's now on to Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. And because of that though, yeah, he was glad to be back on the Kingdom Hearts swing of things again after the events of Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, or technically Kingdom Hearts 1, but as a result of that particular matter though is about the fact that, well, I was really looking forward to see how that particular playthrough is going to turn out to be, especially because, you know, ever since in, I would say ever since in 2015, that he did somehow, you know, like I said before, he did somehow tackle through Kingdom Hearts 1, but to be more specifically though, he did manage able to play through the game on the PlayStation 3 version just because of the forms of larger text fonts during the course of the certain cutscenes, and on top of that, there might be quite a few loading times from time to time, and not only that, it only runs at 30 FPS on the PS3 version, similar to the PlayStation 2 version. So, but either way though, I could imagine for the fact that I have no idea, no matter what though, that he just never seemed able to take a break on playing RPGs. Although I'm pretty sure he's overly obsessive with the forms of playing RPG stuff, which I don't mind at all, especially considering for the fact that after all, he did manage able to play through not only Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, just because no matter what though, the Switch version is now a thing, and on top of that, Pokemon Fire Red or Leaf Green on some scenarios, and now he's going to be able to be doing Kingdom Hearts 2, or Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix to be more specific. So because of that, yeah, he doesn't seem able to take a break on the forms of playing RPGs, but either way, so yeah, that's as far as I can usually think about it. So either way, yeah, we did somehow manage able to achieve the S rank, of course, so in some cases though... Oh, and another thing I would like to mention about this as well, if you couldn't tell already, yes, we did somehow manage able to change our different clothing this time around, to make it a little bit more consistency with the forms of how the fact that for those of you unaware, that we've only just got about 20 more days to go until Christmas 2023. So because of that though, yes, I did somehow manage able to get into a Christmas costume mod. So because of that, luckily it's for free for download, so at the very least you don't need to worry about just trying to able to pay some short amount of cash in order able to actually access the forms of that particular DLC costume as far as I'm aware. So, but either way though, seriously, I just really love the fast travel system where it comes to, like, although it's kind of a bummer though, that you have to fill up the entire map first in order able to actually make things a little bit more faster. So because of that, so here we are back on the forms of level 4-D, and no matter what though, we're about to focusing on the last objective, which is of course rescuing all the animals and put them into safe spots. And I know it sounds a little bit too crazy, but I'm also able to say this anyway. But you know what's my least favorite mission objectives in the whole game are? Well, to be more specifically, in terms of the majority of the Final Horizon DLC update, is rescuing all the animals into safe spots. I mean, usually some other objectives are not too shabby. Like, for instance, if you pretty much know what you're doing, well, assuming, of course, no matter what, though, I think I should probably save that particular topic once we, hopefully, getting very, very, very close towards the end of this game. Because as far as I'm aware, that's usually, like I said before, it's been like 50 plus parts so far during the course of Sonic Frontier so far. I mean, usually relatively speaking, it's about the fact that unlike something related to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they're expecting to believe about the fact that, oh, and by the way, that's what happens if you do come across into that specific mine right there, despite the actual, the visual graphic for the mines was not potentially there, so it's all incredibly luck-based, and that is where the exclamation mark decides to come into play. Like, every time whenever it gets red, this means you've almost nearly at the mine that you've almost tried to activate for. And by the way, if you dare touch the mine, basically those about the fact that not only you send higher into the skies, well, not necessarily higher to the skies, but you also lose rings as well. So because of that, consider you have to watch out for it. And I believe we only have to do it for about 2 cyberspace stages, luckily, so because of that, technically we've already accomplished that since in Journey forms of whenever we first got there, despite the fact that finding the hidden goal was a nightmare just because of all that. You know, you have to pay attention to the premise of the level design around here, or just potentially speaking, just trying to able to look hard enough. So, but anyway though, for those of you who don't know, there was actually quite a number of those Sonic the Hedgehog games, ports, has been cancelled in the past few years or so. Although I would have liked able to mention about those right now, but exponentially speaking, if you couldn't tell, then I'm just gonna have to able to focusing on trying to actually just trying to, you know, take those animals into their safe spots, which still is a bit tedious for sure, especially considering for the fact that, again, if you dare come across into one of those animals you do want to rescue for, you are pretty much restricted for the sake of the, you can't do double jumps, you can't do boosts, or you can't do homing attack into things, or potentially speaking though, you cannot allow to able to use spin dash, or try to do a stomp, or even especially noticeable with quick steps as well, at least as far as I'm aware. But as you can tell, I keep on messing things up, because, again, you have to rely on forms of the camera angles. Specifically, you have to utilize the right analog stick every second you can. Although, I would have labeled to actually just try to mention about the forms of some tips and, well, hints and tips during the forms of completing certain, objectives like these. But I think I should probably save those and join at some point in, well, potentially speaking, maybe next week or something like that. So, either way. Oh yeah, speaking of which though, is about the fact that yes, if you couldn't tell already, is about the fact that, well, we've only just got about 10 more days to go until Chicken Run Dawn of the Nuggets will be releasing on Netflix. So, still I'm pretty excited for it, so, and I'm sure that I'm also able to fetch some tons of popcorn, whatever that particular film decides to able to finally comes out on Netflix, so that should be pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned. So, anyways though, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, is that I believe that, excuse me, for that particular matter though, is about the fact that yeah, I did somehow manage to able to caught up watching those 2 specials for the likes of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials recently, and I believe the third and final one is about to due out at some point in this weekend coming up, specifically on the 9th of December, so because of that, yeah, it might be, seems kind of unfortunate for the sake of the forms of how the fact that we haven't got that long now until we, gonna move on to the forms of the 15th Doctor coming up, so because of that, sure, it's nice to see David Tennant to become the Doctor again, although this time it appears to be by the forms of the 14th incarnation, but regardless of everything else though, like we've already stated this before, ever since in a very, very, very long time, that he only lasted for about 3 particular specials, so, you know, it kind of reminds me of the similar situation as the forms of back in during the forms of not only in 2008, but also for the majority of 2009, and maybe a little bit in 2010, because as far as I do remember back in the day, that basically though is about the fact that we have one of those specials in during the forms of in the Christmas special in 2008 called The Next Doctor. And on top of that, during the course of in 2009, not only do we get ourselves one of those two specials, one in the forms surrounding during the forms of in spring, but there's also one on autumn, and on top of that, there is also the Christmas one as well. So, potentially speaking though, is about the fact that we come across into planet of, I think it was actually called, I don't know about that, because it's been a very long time actually since I actually have last seen those specific specials, ever since in 2009, whatever when that particular specials has been firstly introduced, since in during the forms of in BBC One, back in during the forms of it again in 2009. So because of that, still my memories has been a little bit slightly foggy at some point, but I mean, sure, no matter what though, that Tiana, she's pretty much an expert when it comes to remembering things. So anyway, so that pretty much takes care of everything for the likes of well, Cyberspace level 4-D. So I don't have to worry about just trying to able to complete that particular objectives ever again. So for now on, let's focusing on the next Cyberspace segment, and out of all the actual Cyberspace segments in the entire DLC by far, this is without doubt is not only is the longest, but it's also is one of the hardest in terms of the forms of the Cyberspace stages, just because in somewhere during the course of the forms of, I would classify for saying it usually takes place in the city kind of road or anything else like that, even though it's a bit hard to explain, because I know for a fact that it's been about 5 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, because recently, not only does, you know, Jewel is somehow now working on Metroid Zero Mission, a complete remake of the first Metroid game back on the NES, but also out of nowhere, that Maxi is working on the original version of Super Mario Bros. 2, or Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. So because of that, well, exponentially speaking, I was about the fact that luckily Maxi is definitely need to deserve a break for a little bit, until he decides to realize that he's going to be playing through the game so many times off screen, and because of that, yeah, in order to able to actually access the world A through D, he needs to play through the game 8 times in a row until you success it. So because of that, I don't get it with this questionable design choices, but either way though, again, wish him luck I suppose, especially considering for the fact that maybe he'll try to able to save that up once we get too close to Christmas time or something like that, because for now we are at this point. And exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that, like I said before, we've pretty much almost done everything for Sonic Frontiers of how this game actually has to offer. Like, as a result, the only few things we want to address something about this, and that's what appears to be by the forms of not only a lot of character interactions that we still need to find, well, to be more specifically for both Amy and Knuckles respectively, but also no matter what though is about the fact that we still need to able to consider about the forms of the tougher variants for certain Guardians. So, if I recall correctly, there's actually a lot of Guardians during the course of the alternative version of Aranos' Island. So because of that, yeah, it might take me a lot of practice at this point, especially no matter what though, whenever I first encountered those Guardians, ever since in Journey forms of on the Switch version, my god, I died a lot of times, mainly because of this unpredictable pattern, or basically speaking though, I was not expecting for certain attacks. So because of that, it might take me a bit of a couple of practice at one point, and of course, we can never forget to mention about the forms of the true final boss coming up, or to be more specifically, the true final battle coming up. So, I'm sure that we will come across into Supreme again, and on top of that, well, maybe like the end again? Well, only a different perspective or something. So because of that, again, that particular topic can wait. Maybe either be next week or anything else like that. It's so difficult to tell, because I know for sure right from the start though, it's just, I just want to get this game finished, you know? But anyways, let's talk about the forms of those cancelled Sonic ports that I somehow briefly mentioned about this earlier throughout the years. And as a result, no matter what though, there's actually quite a lot of game ports that has been cancelled over. Well, at the same time though, that I really wish if they'll come reality, but ultimately speaking though, it's most notably because of failures and hard to produce and all that stuff. Like for instance, there was actually a cancelled port of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for PC, stands for so yeah, I'm not exactly sure why that particular version of the game has been cancelled. And on top of that, there's also the Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the Mega CD ports or Sega CD ports. But as a result, those two have been completely scrapped for the Sega CD ports. So again, not exactly sure why those two ports have been cancelled entirely. And also not to mention though, is that obviously the iOS version of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles has also been cancelled, probably because of the licensing issues for the likes of the music or something like that. Well, presumably speaking though, because of something related to Michael Jackson himself, so I guess that makes it pretty obvious. Which, thankfully though, we did somehow manage to finally get a chance to have ourselves the remastered version of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, thanks to the Forms of Sonic Origins compilation. So, at the very least, we don't need to necessarily worry about the forms of waiting for the mobile phone version. So, because of that, I'm still pretty much happy with that as it is, despite there are some questionable decisions what they managed to go for, like, for instance, the different soundtrack, which I suppose to able to try to match the PC collection for the likes of Sonic and Knuckles collection. So because of that, yeah, and on top of that, apparently Sonic Mania was originally going to have a 3DS port, but as a result it's been cancelled, mainly because no matter what though, I'm pretty sure for the fact that the 3DS's lifespan is almost about to come to its full conclusion, or anything else to able to accumulate, but it might be a bit difficult to explain. I'm sure that some die-hard Sonic fans will probably already expect at that point. So, and there's also going to be the Game Boy Advance version of Sonic Riders was going to be planned, but it is very difficult to try to develop it. So, but luckily we still managed to get ourselves Sonic Riders after all, not only on the Nintendo GameCube, but also with PlayStation 2 and the OG Xbox, or specifically just Xbox in general. So because of that, well, at the very least though, it's about the fact that they're just strictly going to be able to release that game specifically in consoles only, rather than on handhelds, which is fine by me, because I still managed to enjoy, you know, the original Sonic Riders for time to time, despite I still haven't exactly fully 100% everything in that game yet, either on the forms of in the GameCube or PlayStation 2 or Xbox versions, but I'm sure I will able to actually unlock the final two characters, which basically is like E10,000 green and E10,000 red. So again, I apologize for my commentary, it gets a little bit slightly messy at some form or another, but that's just mainly because, well, at this point in time, the temperature at the moment, during the course of in the UK's weather temperature right now, is gone really, really cold. But I'm sure I'll try to make myself warm enough, so just in case I can actually just get myself a little bit of a cozy vibe to it. So anyway, there's also, originally it was going to be the Wii and PC port of Sonic 06, which as a result that we already know for the fact that the Wii port of Sonic 06 will eventually became Sonic and the Secret Rings, at least as far as I'm aware. And as far as the PC version, as far as I'm concerned, obviously that does not seem able to be the case, because obviously Sonic 06 receives very poorly in terms of reviews and audiences alike, although it did sell quite well, but even then, no, that's as far as I can usually describe about it. And also, there was originally going to be able to port, actually one, not two, but 3 different ports of Sonic Generations, which after all, we've already got ourselves the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of Sonic Generations, including PC as well, and there's also the 3DS version, which pretty much plays a little bit differently from the console version, just because different amount of levels you go into, and on top of that, the 3DS version is strictly 2.5D, rather than just having some 3D elements. So kind of a bummer though, especially concerning for the fact that still, while looking back on Sonic Generations for the 3DS version, even to this day, after 12 years since when it first came out, it's not that great, but it was decent enough. It incorporates the forms of the exactly same gameplay style, specifically for modern Sonic anyway, in regards to the forms of the exactly same gameplay style as from Sonic Rush, but with the forms of 2.5D perspective or something like that. So, oh, in addition with the forms of classic Sonic was there as well. So because of that, yeah, apparently though, they're about to be able to originally able to receive not only the PSP version, but also the DS version and the Wii version as well. But apparently though, those 3 specific ports never happened, because obviously with the forms of maybe the late lifespan might have something to do with that. Or potentially speaking though, they did able to actually just like, well, again, it's a bit tricky to explain, because I never exactly know about the forms of specific clues of why these particular ports have been cancelled during that specific period. So, and they're originally able to do the Wii port of Sonic Free Riders, which, oh man, back in the day, when I've heard about it, I was incredibly hyped for it. But unfortunately though, the Wii version is not going to happen for the likes of Sonic Free Riders, mainly because of quite a number of things. Like Powerhouse, they heavily utilizes motion controls thanks to the forms of the Xbox 360 Kinect. And not only that though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure the reviews and the sales for the likes of the Xbox 360 Kinect games didn't exactly receive very well for its, maybe for sales numbers or something like that. And not only that, the reviews have been bombed for the likes of the forms of Sonic Free Riders, which, thankfully, every now and then is about the fact that certain fans out there have pretty much able to actually get the actual no Kinect patch from the likes of the emulation version for the likes of Sonic Free Riders. So at the very least, that's that. But it's just a shame for me, I still haven't get a chance to able to experience Sonic Free Riders for quite a long time, especially considering for the fact that it's kind of unfortunate that the series has been ended thanks to the forms of this particular miserable failure for the likes of Sonic Free Riders game for the Xbox 360 game exclusive. So I'm sad, honestly. So, and not only that, as for I think I've already know about this, is that originally that the WiiWare version of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 was originally going to be planned, but the reason why the WiiWare version of that game has been cancelled due to the forms of the graphical limitations, because obviously that's the thing is with the forms of in the Xbox 360 version or the PlayStation 3 version, and heck, even with the PC version as well, the graphics look spectacular. Even especially noticeable, it contains 2.5D backdrops, and on top of that, some actual 3D backdrops or backgrounds and stuff like that, which I found why that the Wii version of Sonic 4 Episode 2 is no longer going to be able to be released because of the graphical limitations. So, and not only that, Sonic Unleashed was originally also going to be able to have ourselves another 3 ports, or specifically just 3 ports in general, which are PC version, the DS version, and the PSP version. But the reason why that the PSP version and the DS version is probably not going to happen for Sonic Unleashed because of technical issues, and on top of that, they're most likely only going to be releasing Sonic Unleashed on consoles only, just because, well, it's quite suitable in my opinion when it comes to not only on the Xbox, amazing, even especially noticeable, it does remind me like a Pixar movie. So as a result, and same applies with the forms of the PS3 version as well, despite with the forms of some different loading times and anything else to be more specific. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much as far as I can usually think about it. Basically, we're just to have ourselves 4 different versions of, you know, Sonic Unleashed, which is obviously, I've already mentioned this earlier, the Xbox 360 version, the PlayStation 3 version, and as well as the PlayStation 2 version, and the Wii version. Well, between both the Wii versions, we have some slight differences compared to the forms of how it does it on the HD version, so, or if I like to call it an SD version of, well, you know what I'm saying. And there was originally going to be able to be not only 1 port, but 2 different ports of Sega Sonic the Hedgehog for the arcade machines, which one of them is going to be on the Sega 32X and a part of the forms of the Sonic Gems collection. Well, the only reason why that I'm pretty sure Sega Sonic the Hedgehog is not going to happen because the graphics for, whilst compared to the 32X, is not that powerful enough, nor able to actually eligible for 30. Now, as far as the part of the Sonic Gems collection version, I was expecting it they'll try to able to include that game, but the reason why that Sega Sonic the Hedgehog is no longer going to be part of the actual compilation, specifically for Sonic Gems Collection, is most notably because it's hard to emulate the game because of the forms of the control scheme, because obviously in the arcade game of Sega Sonic the Hedgehog heavily utilizes the trackball, which obviously the more you're able to actually just keep on, you know, just using your hand to like, even though it's a bit tricky to explain, because I have not able to actually experience the game either. Well, that's just mainly because no matter what though, it might be pretty tricky to control, so, and I suppose the final, Sonic port game, it was originally going to be planned, but ultimately got cancelled, and that's what appears to be the Sonic the Fighters game. I was expecting that would be the case, but even then though, it's most likely not going to be the case, mainly because, well, again, it's a bit tricky to explain for people to actually know this particular solutions, but either way though, still, it's incredibly, weird to able to actually realize that I almost assumed that that particular version will came to its fruition, but you know, like I said before, that the Sega Saturn version of Sonic the Fighters is not happening, so. But yeah, I think that's as far as I can usually say about the forms of some cancelled Sonic game ports. Well, I mean, sure, there's quite a lot of those things I could probably think about on top of my head, but as a result of that particular matter though, is about the fact that that's as far as I can usually say about it, so. Oh, in addition to that, is about the fact that apparently though, until when it gets to the point until next year in 2024, which appears to be by the forms of Nintendo Live 2024 in Tokyo, it looks like no matter what though, Charles Martinet, who voiced Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi during the course of the forms of in the past few years, will be as a special guest in during the forms of the Nintendo Live 2024 in Tokyo. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how that's going to turn out to be, specifically until, you know, in next year in general. So yeah, I'm just very going to be excited to see how that's going to be represented for. So anyway though, in terms of the forms of other things I would like to explain, I do know for certain right from the start though, is potentially speaking though, is that yeah, I've already addressed this enough, that we somehow still skipping over the stupid team rally system from the likes of in Mario Kart Tour. Well, that's just mainly because no matter what though, I'm still not a big fan of that particular system, because no matter what though, it's all depending on RMG sometimes, when it comes to getting the best results. Well, it doesn't really matter what specific team you want to go for. I mean, I don't mind the actual concept, but execution, I think to me, it just feels a massive step backwards to me. So because of that, and potentially speaking of also, I think I've actually decided able to take a break on playing Sonic Dash for a while, mainly because I've pretty much already gone far enough for the sake of the forms of that particular unlocking characters as far as I'm concerned, at least for now. So because of that, oh, and another thing too, we did somehow technically receive, according to Metacritic anyway, they did somehow list it top 10 highest rated games of 2023 so far. So for instance, no matter what though, it looks like we actually got quite a number of games. They did somehow manage able to get it listed for the top 10 highest rated games of 2023 so far, which there are obviously The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, as well as Baldur's Gate 3, Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Xbox Series X/S, and PS5 versions, and on top of that, Metroid Prime Remastered, Alan Wake 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Tetris Effect Connected, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I'm guessing because of DLC or something. And which though, we've only just got about 2 more days to go until the Game Awards is about to start. To be more specifically, I'm not exactly sure what the time zone slot is it going to be, but I'm sure let me know in the comments down below, because obviously no matter what though, I think it's probably best if we're able to actually mention that specific topic during at some point in probably until next week sometime, mainly because no matter what though, after we basically done, well, the majority of the forms of the cyberspace missions in Journey forms of the Final Horizon DLC update. I'm pretty sure the next thing I need to focus on, and that's what appears to be just trying to able to find the last few character interactions. Before that, I need to take care of the forms of, maybe if there's a possibility, I can probably take down most of the Guardians or something like that. Again, let me know in the comments down below if you want me to tackle through those very, very, very difficult Guardian battles, because let me tell you, I'm not going to be hesitating for that, mainly because like, let's just say, the organization data battle from not only from Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, but also with Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC for the sake of the forms of the Organization 13's data battles or anything else like that. Sometimes that certain Guardians every now and then gets a lot more aggressive and a lot more tougher, so because of that, I still need to try to practice those on my own time for a bit. So, but again, sometimes it all really depends on it really, so because of that, I shall wait and see what happens. Although, from what I've heard anyway, while trying to beat them, the reward is not exactly that worth it in my opinion, although it does manage to give support from time to time, but either way, that particular topic can wait. So, what I can't believe by saying this is about the fact that, well, I think we've only just got about, if I recall correctly anyway, 27 more days to go until we are approaching on to 2024. I mean, let's face it though, it's about the fact that we've gone through so many game releases so far for the likes of 2023, which I'll still say that the game selection in 2023 is by far the strongest, mainly because, well, I suppose that's actually we're able to mention about it. We'll able to actually mention more about it if we get into the final Let's Play in 2023 for sure. So because of that, yeah, I suppose that seems to be the case. So, but anyway, so I think, relatively speaking though, that's as far as I can usually decide able to discuss upon, I'm afraid, guys. I mean, sure, I would have liked able to explain something else for that matter though, but honestly folks, I think I've already mentioned about these quite a few bits well enough. So because of that, even though it's a bit of a shame, for what I've heard anyway, that Once Upon a Studio was originally going to go alongside with the forms of Disney's Wish, but sadly, that idea is scrapped. So because of that, I'm not exactly sure why they attempt to because of run times or something, or perhaps even maybe it's something else. But either way though, it might be tricky to explain, because I know for a fact it's been about quite a few weeks ago since I actually have last watched this amazing Once Upon a Studio short film, because I can seriously still recommend it, you know, especially because that will truly deserves the 100 years of Disney celebration. So because of that, yeah, I fully appreciate about that. So because of that, it's a shame no matter what though, is about the fact that I don't think that, well, you probably already expect. So either way though, but then again, I would have liked to explain something else for this point today, but honestly, I think that's as far as we got it covered for the time being. So, and again, I was expecting to be able to try to mention about the forms of what's going up for the likes of the forms of the next couple of days or so, but then again though, we should probably wait on that particular topic in a later time. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm pretty much not going to be ready to able to actually just to tackle for those tougher variants of certain Guardians, because, you know, I potentially got butt kicked most of my time, although potentially speaking though, because I could imagine my fingers and thumbs are going to get a little bit more painful at this point, which at this point in time, once I'm basically done with any other optional stuff, then obviously, no matter what though, I'm about able to get my hands are pretty much gonna be in painful process, which it kind of reminds me of the forms of, like I said before, that it becomes what work I've played if you for completion. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind doing these optional things, but it's just that, well, again, we should probably save that particular topic and doing at some point on, possibly on Thursday or next week for potentially for the finale of the week, or for next week or something. Time though, that's the thing, so yeah, unfortunately though, I did somehow die from that particular Master Ninja Plus just because of how aggressive he can be. So, anyway, with that being said though, I suppose we should probably end things off this point right here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers, is that we'll switch over those characters for the final time for able to actually just try to find the skill points Coco, and I suppose we'll finish up everything for the Cyberspace Stages. So I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas. Ugh, okay. At least I got that out of the way.